Hi, this is Lisa, Paper Grace Designs, and I'm so pleased to be joining you today as part of the Penny Black How-To Video Blog Hop. You should have arrived at my video from Joy Taylor's video or blog, Simple by Design. If not, you can reach her channel by clicking the link in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. I've made a mixed media tag for you today using the new Penny Black Slapstick Cling Poppy Time stamp and matching Suncatcher stencil. All products will be linked at the end of my video. Now I've started with a tag that I've already stitched a piece of patterned paper to. So I've already stitched the paper to the tag, and that's where I'm starting from. Now I'm using the Suncatcher stencil here with some gesso. I'm just using a cheapo little foam, I guess, what are those things called? Just a little foam brush, and I'm just using the gesso and using that through the stencil. I'm just using a little bit of the gesso and just smushing it through the stencil, and that's what I'm starting off with. Now gesso is going to provide a base for the color that I'm going to be using with the stamp. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. Gesso is going to provide a base because the paper is porous, and what I want to create is a non-porous surface to provide for my gelatos. So that's what I'm doing here. So gesso is one of those multi-purpose tools, and once you start using it, you'll realize, how did I ever live without this? It's really pretty great. So that's what I'm using the gesso for, because paper is porous and you want to create a non-porous surface. So that's what I'm doing. Just using a heat tool here real quick to make sure that I can dry this really quick. And it's one of those things you just kind of go, okay, I don't want to wait. So you're just using a heat tool to dry it really quick. And you got to be careful a little bit because the gesso tends to be, sometimes it's a little thin. So I went out a little bit of the lines with the gesso, but you know, it's mixed media. You don't have to be perfect. And actually nobody should try to be perfect. Art isn't perfect, and you shouldn't really strive to be perfect. So now I'm just I used an archival ink on top of the stamp, and I'm just using the outline of the stencil to stamp over the top of it. And you do want to make sure that you use some type of archival ink to stamp with, because otherwise it's just going to wipe right off. You don't want to use a dye ink. Now I'm just going to be using the gelatos. As I said, I want to create a non-porous surface because the gelatos otherwise, just going to come right off anyway. So that's what you're kind of going for. And I'm using pistachio and green tea. Those two work really well together when blending. So that's what I worked with. And you can just rub your finger right over that, and they just blend really well together. And having that white background also kind of serves as a highlighter, which I think looks really beautiful. And just again, using my finger to blend. Because they are water soluble, as you'll see a little bit later on, if you use something like a baby wipe, it'll take the color off, but sometimes that's okay. You just want to be a little bit careful. Depending on how much color you want to take off, it could be a good thing, but you don't want to take all your color off, unless you made a major boo-boo. And here you go, green tea and pistachio. Now I'm taking my colors of reds and oranges. I've got tangerine, blood orange, mango, and I've got red cherry, just in case I want to go a little bit darker. The blood orange is from the Retros 50s Diner collection, so that's the only one that's not in a regular like 4-pack of colors. And again, I'm just using the same type of format where I'm going to be blending the colors together to create the full blend of colors that I wanted. And again, I'm just using my finger to blend them together. And then again, as you'll see here, I'm going to use a little bit of a baby wipe to get them to blend just a little bit and to soften the colors a bit. Really easy to do. And there you go. I've got all my color blended. And then I'm reaching for a Pitt Artist Stamper's Big Brush pen. And I realized, hey, wait a minute, I haven't sealed my color yet. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my gel medium, which is actually the product that I tend to use the most. You think it would be the gesso because that's one of those things you can use for so many things. It's so versatile. But I tend to use the gel medium the most, which is really funny. But gel medium you can use for a lot of things too. It's not just a sealer, but you can use it for a lot of different things. It's just one of those multi-purpose tools that once you realize how many things you can use it for, you're like, how did I live without this? So gel medium and gesso are two things you really want to have in your bag. Excuse me. Now I'm using the Pitt Artist Stampers Big Brush pens. And again, once you have that gel medium on top, you do have a little bit of playtime with these Stampers Big Brush pens. Even though these are India ink and they will be permanent and light fast and archival and all that other kind of stuff when they're dry, when you have them on top of the gel medium like this, you do have a little bit of playing time and you can rub them in and create those soft lines. And that is one of those things that I just love so much about these pens. And on these stamps, they are just beautiful. They just are made to work together. I think they're just gorgeous. And I like having those messy soft lines around there. And they just bring these poppies to life. Just beautiful colors. I think this one is the permanent green olive, if I'm not mistaken. One of the nice things about these pens is that they do have the light fast rating on them too. So that's pretty cool. And then I'm going to go around the edges and just dress up the edges a little bit with some vintage photo. And then I'll also use a distressing tool to go around the excuse me, to go around the edges too. But first up, I'm using what's called this is sequin waste. And that's one of those things you kind of look, okay, it's punchinella, it's sequin waste. All the little holes are created from when they make sequins. So I use this sometimes instead of using a traditional stencil. And I'm just using one of these products. It's called Whip Spackle. It's a little bit like modeling paste. It's very light, very fluffy. And I'm just using that to create my stencil. Sometimes the cheapest products are the easiest ones to use. It cleans up really easy. And I'm just using that to create my stencil. So it's just really easy, and this is one of those fun products. You can tint it with the gelatos, and it's just really easy to use. I'm going ahead and using that on both the upper left-hand corner and the lower right-hand corner to create my little dotted stenciled look. And having that white on there also creates a little bit of a contrast with the color. So I really like that. And I'll go ahead and I'll use some of the gesso also on here to tone down some of that brownish color from the pattern paper and go around and create a highlight. Excuse me, I'm having some trouble with my voice. To create a little bit of a highlight around the flower. So here I am going around the edges with that vintage photo. And my little reinforcer came off, and I'll use the gel medium to put that back on. My two most used brown inks are Vintage Photo and Walnut Stain. Now I'm using the banana gelato. I'm just rubbing it onto the craft sheet, a little bit of water, and using a paintbrush, just swirl it in there. And then I'm just going to just tap it and create a few little droplets onto the tag, and that creates a nice contrast of color between the red and the yellow and the green, and it's just a fun little accent. One of those really easy things to do to create a little bit accent of color. Now I'm using a really interesting product from Arc Crafts, and it's an actual wood tape. It has an adhesive backing, and this is what I'm going to use to stamp my sentiment on. The sentiment is the T for Transparent Kind Words sentiment set, and I'm using a Tsukaneko Delicata golden glitz ink, but this product is actual wood birch, and that's what I'm using to stamp my sentiment. Then I'll use my corner chomper to round the edges and make a little notched banner tag. And then what I'll also do to finish this up is I'll put a couple little sequins on there, and then just like I said, use some gesso and add some ribbon and some twine, and then the tag is pretty much done. And I hope you really enjoyed the process and had fun with me today, and thank you so much for joining me. And if you liked the video, just go ahead and give me a couple thumbs up, and I hope you subscribe. And all the supplies, not only here, but if you want to see the links, I will have them listed below. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care. Bye-bye.